Hi, everybody. This is Lou Monty, and this is Music from the Inside. And remember, your dysfunction is your superpower. What we're going to do today should be very interesting. We are going to look at an orchestration that I did for a track that I produced for Marc Jordan. The track is the Carmichael standard, The Nearness of You, always one of my favorite songs. And I arranged it for full string section, woodwinds, and French horns, along with a jazz piano trio, and I'm playing piano. I sent the tracks after we did the bed tracks here in Toronto. We sent the tracks to Prague, where they recorded, and we were hooked up via video and high quality audio. And I would make notes, and via text, I would send them notes, and they would do all that. And it turned out really great. And I've done it with them about 6 times now, and they're a wonderful orchestra, and they sound great. It's very affordable. So why don't we start by just listening to the first bits of the arrangement. We'll follow along on the PDF.
When I'm lying alone in my room and the moon shining down like a yellow balloon, all I do is dream of you. So near, so far, losing yourself in the stars. It's not the pale moon that excites me, that thrills me and delights me.
This is my favorite part.
Oh no, it's just the nearness of you, my baby. It isn't your sweet.
Okay, let's just go as far as that. Okay, so if we go back to the top, you'll see that it's a very sparse intro, and I'm playing a very kind of impressionistic thing on the piano. We're in the key of F, and I'm using C, D, E, F, G in a kind of a flourishy run. Everything's over the 5, so it's all over the C. And as you can see in the strings here, I've just got C's and G's. Got no basses in here, C's and G's, with the woodwinds just doing a unison line. And then the second half of the intro, my whole intention was to build this a little bit. And as you can see, the voicing starts to become a little bit fuller. And then finally, I add the bass, who comes in on the 5. We now go to like a full 6-note chord, which is like an F major 9 over a C chord. And then we go to what is basically a B flat over F. Or a G minor 7 over F, and then I flat the D, which is the flat 9 of C, and then we are into the top of the verse, and Mark comes in singing. And as you can see, it's kind of a modern sound here, where we've got the basses on the root, and if you look here, I've got a little cluster of G, A, C here, and I've got the first violins right up at the top on a high C. So we come in, they fade out, the orchestra fades out, and we come right down to a very small sounding, but beautiful sounding piano trio. Then I wait for the 5th bar of the verse to come in here. And this is my favorite part of the entire chart. It works for a number of reasons. So we're A minor 7 going to a D7 altered chord to a G7. So it's basically just the turnaround at the end of the verse. So if you see what I've done here, there are no woodwinds in yet, and there are no horns in yet, so it's only strings. Now I've got them pitched fairly low. The melody is this B, C, D, and then E flat. So the B is the 9th on the A minor 7, which is a lovely lush sound, because of course B is not a part of F. But on the 3 minor 7 chord, it's the 9th. Very lovely, as long as you don't sit on it for too long. And as you can see, what I've done here is I've done a contrary motion. So in the first, I go B, C, I rise, B, C, E, E flat, E, up to the F, up to the G. And then in the violas, I start on the same note as the firsts, but I go B and I go down to A, down to G. So I've got the cellos and the basses on A's, and it's just this. So what it is, it's a bit of an unfolding sound, always getting richer, starting with a single note and then getting richer as we move through that bar. So as you can see here, in beat one and it's basically just a B, but when we get to beat two, now we've got a C and an A. We get to two and we've got a D and a G. Now we get to the D7 chord. And what happens here is it gets full and lush because now we've got a D7 flat 5, flat 9 chord moving to a D13 chord, which is a lovely sound. It's a dark sound, and then it kind of opens up into the D13 sound. And as you can see now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we have a 5-note voicing. Whereas before we had a 1-note voicing, a 2-note voicing, a 3-note voicing, a 3-note voicing. Now we're into a full 5-note voicing, another 5-note voicing as it opens up into the D13. Then I go to the G minor 7 with the 11th. And I've just got a G on the bottom and then F, B flat, C, F, and then to the C. And we'll just go on there. And so now the turnaround continues. I still don't have any horns or winds in. And we just move through here. You can have a look. And we also have another flat 5, flat 9 chord, which becomes a regular flat 9 chord, opens up a little bit. And then we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-note voicing because I wanted maximum lushness on the G7, G minor 7 with the 11th. And then we go to a C9 sus chord here. And once again, on B4, I flatten it. And then we hit the G. So let's just hear from when I come in again, okay?
Thrills me and delights me. Oh no, it's just the nearness of you, my baby.
And we'll go on.
It isn't your sweet conversation that brings this sensation.
Okay, so let's have a look at the top of the second verse. So we're getting into a situation now where we've settled. We're in the top of the second verse, strings are in, and everyone's playing. So as you can see here, the strings, I've got the first on a G, the second's on a C, and then I've got this chord here, E, G, C, in the violas and the cellos. And I've got that, I've got the bass in for the first bar, but then I take them out because I don't want too much weight as we move through these changes in the second half of the verse. So as you can see, this is kind of a standard kind of a chord. Look at this chord here. So the C minor 9 chord, I've spelled it out. I've split the cellos, divisi. I've split the violas, divisi. So now I've got this block voicing here. And then I've got the first and the second violins in octaves for the melody, which always works beautifully. And I just move through the changes here, finding a nice melody that is not using the notes that Marc is using vocally. Very important. I don't like that. I want a line that is accompanying a vocal to be occupying a different space, both in register and note-wise. I want to stay away from his stuff. Funny story, Randy Brecker plays the trumpet solo on this, the one and only Randy Brecker. And he phoned me and he said, "Hey, Lou, you took up all the good notes," which basically means that when I did my orchestration, I like to use all of the altered notes. Whereas there are some arrangements where the arrangement is a little straighter and then the soloist can find those out notes, but I've kind of done that. So what happens is Randy said that He played more inside notes because my orchestration, my string writing, was already using those out notes, the flat nines, the sharp 11s, and the flat fives, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just an interesting note. So as you can see, we move through here and we go to a B flat diminished. Let's move to the next section. So, okay, let's look at the second verse, okay? And as you can see now, here's the top of the second verse. I've gone into kind of a standard thing here where the chord is voiced lower. There's a C triad here over F, and what happens is I've basically got the first violins and the second violins in octaves playing this melody. And what I've done is, as you can see up here, I've taken a different melody, a counter melody, in the woodwinds, and I voiced them in triads here, as you can see. And they're going to highlight some of the nice changes. Let's just play that.
Baby, it isn't your sweet conversation that brings this sensation. Oh no, it's just the nearness of you.
Okay, so as you can see, we're just about to go into the bridge. And as you can see, I've got first and seconds in unison. And as we move through this, I add the woodwinds in octaves. We go through this. I'm making sure I'm picking all the juicy notes, much to Randy's chagrin. And through here, you can see the chords are F, E flat 9, sharp 11, going back to an F major 9 chord here. And now we're about to go to the bridge, and things change a little bit. So let's just hear the bridge.
When you're in my arms and I feel you so close to me, oh, my wildest dreams come true. I need no soft light.
Okay, why don't we look at what I did there? So the bridge, I'm holding chords in the top, and we're doing this pedal, this 5-pedal thing. So I've got basically the 4 chord or a G minor 7 chord with C in the bass, and then a G minor 7 flat 5. Very simple, nothing complicated. But I needed a line here. There's a big hole in the vocal here. So you got to take advantage of the holes in the vocal to do something interesting with the orchestration. And here it is here. And it's this line that I wrote here. I've got the first doing it, and I've got the woodwinds doing it, all in octaves in unisons. And it's over the C minor 7 chord, which is the 2-5 going to the 4, to the B flat major 7. And as you can see here, I start with the seconds going, and then I stop, and he becomes part of the chord because it's handled nicely by the woodwinds here. And then I hit here, more chording is going along, and this is going to take us into the third verse. Let's hear the third verse.
Oh, soft lights to enchant me, if you'll only grant me the right to hold you ever so tight, oh, and to feel in the night the nearness of you.
Okay, let's look at that. So the third verse that comes after the bridge, you can see that I've introduced the French horns here. So we've got strings just playing chords, nice chords, lovely voicings. One thing that I learned, everybody is a little afraid to write for strings and orchestra when they first get going. Now, I'm a piano player. And my whole life playing the piano, it's always been about, well, not just about voicings, but it's been, in a big way, it's been about voicings. And voicings that I think speak on the piano. And hey, guess what? Those voicings that speak nicely on the piano speak very well with strings also. I've been told, older friends of mine, more experienced friends of mine have told me that everything sounds good on strings. Well, that's not exactly true, but they are very forgiving. There's no other instrument where you'll have 11 guys playing the same part. Maybe in a choir, that's about it. But as far as instruments go, it's such a beautiful sound. And if you have a professional orchestra playing for you, if you're lucky enough, if you keep it simple, or if you keep it the way that you play the piano, it's going to work. Okay. And then from that point, you'll get more experimental and you'll figure out a few more things. So if we look at this third verse here, straight, I did something interesting here in the fourth bar. So this is another hole in the vocal. And what I did was, it's a block voicing, the same way that Errol Garner would play a block voicing. As you can see here, bow, down, 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 down. And it's all voiced in 4-part, all voiced in 4-part, with the changes happening underneath. We'll go to the next page. And I've got this, and then I've got the horns playing a counter line here. Horns are in unison. As you can see here, I've got the first and the seconds in octaves with lovely, lush voicings here. I've divisied the cellos here, moving through, passing tones. Now, this is interesting. We're going into a reintro here, and from that reintro, it's going to be Randy Brecker's solo. So the last bar is, I take the first out completely, because what I'm doing is I'm coming down. I'm coming down. So when you're coming down, yes, write a D crescendo for sure, as I did, but the complexity of the voicing should be simpler too, and less high, more low. And it goes into this, and it goes into the reintro and Randy's solo. Here's a treat for you. We're going to play Randy's solo for you. Once again, very high voicings with no bottom end.
Nearness of you.
I took the orchestra out. Now back in for the turnaround. More block chords. Horn split into two parts. Let's look at what I did there. So as we go into the solo, I drop the orchestra out, and it becomes down to just a jazz trio. Sounds very jazz and very intimate. And I let him play for 6 bars, and then I come in sparsely with just an octave line here. It's just octaves. Everyone's playing. The strings are playing. The winds are playing. And as you can see, the winds are flute, oboe, and clarinet. And then as we get closer into it, and here's probably the most outside chord in the entire chart, and that is this C7 altered chord, which is basically sharp 11, flat 9, which feels like an F sharp triad over C7. And Randy plays over it beautifully. He's very agile. He knows, he hears. So we go here, and now we're in the second half of the solo, and I go back into my block voicing here. So look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is basically 4-part doubled octave, which is a very well-known thing. So right? I could do that for days. Give me a melody, and I could play 4-part doubled octave. So that's a 5-part, and that's all this is here. And then we go into the last part of the solo, and I'm playing chords. As you can follow along here. You can pause and have a look at all that. Now, there's one of the most important things is that when you're writing for orchestra, you have to think of the orchestra musicians as robots. You have to. The way that an orchestra musician is trained, he is trained to play exactly what's on the page. A good friend of mine who had no experience in writing for strings said, I wrote my first string chart, and I've got 4 string players coming over. Can I show you the chart? He showed me the chart. It didn't have a phrasing mark on it. It didn't have a dynamic marking on it, and it didn't have a crescendo or a decrescendo in it. So they would have looked at that, and they wouldn't have known what to make of it. They just play like a robot. And as it turned out, it didn't turn out great. So as you can see over here, I have a lot of dynamic markings, up, down, hairpins, phrasing. I'm not going to go into phrasing now because there are much better tutorials on YouTube about string phrasing. You don't need me to tell you that. But in your charts, you have to tell them everything you want them to do. Don't leave anything up to their intuition. They're not jazz players. They don't play in rhythm sections. All they do is play what's on the page. And now we're at the bridge again, and I'm not going to show you that again. I just want you to know that going through, we go to the bridge again, and then, which is much like the first bridge, and then we're in the final verse, and it's very much like the previous verses, and then the whole thing ends with a reintro. So let's go to the end and have a look at the end. Top note drops off.
The nearness of you.
Back to my intro voicing.
All I do is dream of you.
Okay, let's just have a look at that. So the final, the outro is the same as the beginning. The only really thing to look at here is the final chord. Let's look at that final chord, okay? So we've got a low F, a very low F, the lowest F on the bass. Cellos have an A, and the violas have B and C. So that's a cluster. As you can see, that's a cluster. So it's basically A, B, C, E, G. And then what I've given the woodwinds is basically an E minor triad. So of course, it's like a F major 9 with a sharp 11, basically a kitchen sink chord, which is what I like to call them. When you're in F Lydian, you can just play every white note. So that's basically it. This chart turned out very well, and I'm quite proud of it, and to everyone's contribution to it, especially Randy and the Prague Orchestra. So I hope that was helpful. Cheers. Hi, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment, and by all means, hit the subscribe button so we can keep improving. Thanks.